My husband told me that he's in love with my sister. I'm pregnant and I don't know why this is happening to me. Final updates. After my sister's engagement and his confession, he made me a promise that he will love me and that he's going to do all in his power to be a good and loving husband and father. He didn't want me to tell my sister anything because he was embarrassed, and we slowly started to plan a future together in another city. He was already getting a better job offer in the other city and now he thought it was time to move on. I agreed. We started marriage counseling. I told my sister that we were moving and she was very distraught, but she as always didn't object and supported me. I don't know if she felt it was weird that my husband wasn't hanging with us anymore, but she never asked. She was probably just busy with her own happiness and the changes in her life. After her vacation she came home and told me everything. She was pregnant and she was glowing. And that was the reason for this sudden engagement. Her fiancé wants to get married before the baby was born. She asked me to keep it a secret. She probably didn't mean even from my husband, but I kept it a secret anyway, because she was waiting for the second trimester to make the announcement. She finally broke down crying, however, about me moving away when she needed me the most, but then later apologized for being selfish. She understood that we needed to provide the best life for my daughter, including finding better jobs elsewhere. I cried for a whole week. A week ago my husband was in a job interview in the other city and he was going to stay there for the week to sign a lease to a new apartment. We thought we could try out the new life before selling our house to buy a new one there. My sisters and her boyfriend made the announcement that they were expecting last Tuesday, the day after my husband's interview. Not 30 minutes later my husband called me. He was drunk and he was crying and asking if it was true and if I knew. He called me a cruel liar for not telling him. He said it was so unfair. My sister's fiancé was a loser and he didn't deserve her. Her fiancé is a carpenter and my sister is a pediatrician. And he told me he needed to be alone for a while, so switched off his phone. Friday he texted me that he didn't want to be with me anymore and that he didn't want to be in my daughter's life. He was sorry but couldn't do it anymore. If I agree to free him from his responsibilities as a father, he will leave me the house. I tried calling him but he had switched off his phone again. I cried all night. Yesterday morning my sister called me to ask what's up. My husband has asked her to meet up with him because he wanted to tell her something that he couldn't say over the phone, that he was coming on Monday to see her. She asked me what's going on, but I was too tired to tell her anything. She and her fiancé are coming over today and I will probably need to tell her everything now. Final update. I knew I could count on you for support. My sister was here and I told her everything. I got help from showing her parts of what I have written here because honestly I'm too tired to go into details about what I've been going through all these weeks. I told her that Lucas was going to call asking to meet her, probably to tell her he loved her, or maybe something more sinister, so she needed to stay away from him. Her fiancé was on the edge of his seat with anger. My sister was just crying and apologizing and trying to hug and stroke my hair. I hated her touch, I don't know why. I know nothing is her fault. I told my sister that now I warned her I want to be in my own for a while and that I didn't want any contact with any of them. I have been thinking about moving to another city. There's a small town that one of my best high school friends live in after getting married. It's up north and everything is bigger and better and cheaper. I can easily find a small rental until the divorce is final, and I can easily get a job there. If I can manage a pace there, I can give birth up there with zero stress. I texted my husband that I've told my sister everything and that both her and her fiancé aren't happy. He called me an hour later. He apologized and told me he didn't mean to freak her out. He just wanted to see her and say goodbye, but that he won't bother her if she feels scared. He's still the same man and wouldn't let anything happen to her. He didn't ask about me or my baby. He's staying in the new place and he's starting his new job in September. He thought he would come back to say goodbye before moving to his new city permanently. My sister texted me later that she loved me and that she would stay out of my way if that's what I wanted, but to please not go through with my plans to move, because she needs me and she would do anything to make it up to me. I didn't answer. I hate it when she's so perfect and kind. F off. Boyfriend is upset that my brother didn't let him spend the night with me when I was very drunk and passed out. I've just turned 18 and can now legally drink where we live. So my brother invited me, my new boyfriend and a few friends and cousins over to hang out and maybe get drunk. I drank way more than I should have. People left one by one and I was only there with my brother and boyfriend. I don't remember much except that I woke up in his spare bedroom in the morning and my boyfriend wasn't there. Apparently I passed out on the couch. My brother took me to the bedroom to sleep. My boyfriend wanted to spend the night there but my brother said no. My brother says he didn't let him stay because he doesn't know him and he didn't know if we've been intimate, and I was completely incapacitated and couldn't consent to anything intimate, so he felt like it's safer to not allow him spend the night there with me. Boyfriend insisted that he didn't want to be intimate, just cuddling. He got confrontational with my brother and accused him of being controlling and said he has no right to decide if he can spend the night with me, which my brother told him, I can decide you're not gonna spend another minute in my house. Boyfriend said he'll leave but he'll take me with him. Brother stood in his way and told him to either leave or deal with the police. Then my boyfriend left. So here we are. My brother thinks I'm dating a complete jerk. My boyfriend thinks I have a whole controlling brother and I've spent the last 2 days regretting drinking that much. My own feeling is that it would have been okay if my boyfriend spent the night with me in the bed, but absolutely not okay to be intimate. We haven't been intimate yet, been dating for less than a month. I understand why my brother acted in a protective way. I was drunk and letting a guy who is interested in me spend the night with me is just unnecessary risk. I also understand my boyfriend's disappointment, but he should have respected my brother in his own house. So now my boyfriend has demanded an apology from my brother for being mistrusted and for interfering in his relationship, and my brother had banned him from future events and parties at his place for being a jerk. My boyfriend would also like me to demand an apology on my own behalf from my brother for him acting the way he did, by assuming he can decide who I can or can't spend the night with. I'm in this mess and I need to make this disappear if I am to have some peace and make everything normal again with my relationship and family. What do I say to my boyfriend? I think he needs to drop this and move on, and over time show to my family that his behavior on the night wasn't who he really is to earn their trust. Update: based on the advice of you guys, my parents and my brother, I broke up with my boyfriend, so I asked my boyfriend what he expected to happen that night if he was allowed to spend the night with me. He repeatedly said nothing but let slip that maybe he hoped we'd be intimate in the morning. So you guys were right, he wanted to do it that night with me and he probably would have if he was allowed to spend the night with me. Even the thought of it gives me a lot of stress. I always knew SA is a danger a lot of women and men face, but never felt it so close to me. Maybe because I've always been with people I trust, I don't know. I never thought it could happen so easily to me. It would have happened to me that night if my brother hadn't protected me the way he did. I'm going to be a lot more careful about my own safety from now on. I won't be as trusting to strangers, and I'm now learning my drinking limits so that I won't overdo it, especially where I might be vulnerable. My brother also told me to never accept a drink from the people I don't 100% trust. Thanks, Reddit.
My wife gave birth to a black baby that clearly isn't mine, and I'm divorcing her, but I'm worried about the relationship between my two kids and their new half-sister. A month ago, my wife gave birth to a black baby girl. We're both white, so she was forced to admit that the child was a result of a one-night stand last year. I've started divorce proceedings, although we're still living together for now. Between our two boys, aged 2 and 4, I've had paternity tests for them and they came back positive. Her infant daughter and her having lost her job, living together as amicably as possible until the divorce is settled is an unfortunate necessity. Naturally, I have no ill will towards the baby, and I've been disgusted by some of the comments I've heard from family members, friends, co-workers and others, all who seem to be fixated on the racial angle of this, as if the most salient part of this isn't that my wife cheated, but that she cheated with a black man and that the baby is black. What really worries me is that my two sons might pick up on these narratives. They're too young to really understand what's happening now, but I'm worried that as they grow to understand the situation that they might grow to resent their half-sister for breaking up their parents' marriage, and worse that their resentment might express itself in a racist fashion, under the influence of the aforementioned racist narratives. Any thoughts on how I should try to influence my sons away from that perspective? It probably doesn't help that we live in a suburb with very few black people and their half-sister is really the only black person my children know. Update: the big takeaway for me was that if I'd need to lead by example here, not excluding her in any way because of her paternity so that she and my sons would see her as a full member of the family. Also that I need to be more active in confronting the bigoted and ignorant nonsense I've been hearing, and teach my sons to do the same to protect their sister. I've spoken to some of those responsible since and made clear my feelings on this, and that she is to be treated as a family member, and that if I ever find out that they've said things like that to my sons or their sister that they won't be allowed around us anymore. I've spoken to my wife about this, and we're more or less on the same page. She's been begging me to forgive her and not go through the divorce, but that's not going to happen. Even if I didn't consider the cheating unforgivable, I just don't feel any love for her anymore, other than a platonic affection for her as the mother of my children. My sons are handling this as well as can be expected. The 4-year-old doesn't fully understand, but is upset by the change in the household. Thankfully he's easily distracted. The 2-year-old is thankfully too young to comprehend what's going on, but has definitely picked up on how withdrawn his mother has become. They're both fascinated with their new little sister, so there's that silver lining. My wife on the other hand isn't in good shape at all. She was depressed even before the birth, and now with everything our divorce, her infidelity being revealed and the backlash from family and friends, PPD, and the exhaustion from raising an infant she's barely functional. She's seeing a therapist, and I've been pressuring some of our family and friends to be supportive of her because even if they think she deserves it, her current state is making it harder for me and our children. It's become very obvious to me that even after the divorce is finalized we're going to have to live together for a while longer. She's in no shape to be taking care of 3 kids without someone else around to support her, and I'm not willing to deprive her of her sons by seeking sole custody. It's also too difficult financially, since she's lost her job. As for the baby girl, she's healthy and fairly easy by baby standards. Since I've been helping care for her, I've bonded with her and I've discussed the possibility of adopting her with my wife. She can't contact the father, as the only thing she knows about him is his first name, and given our co-parenting situation it feels like adopting her as my daughter would be the best outcome for all involved. However, there's been a wrench thrown in that plan. It was brought to my attention that there may be a way of finding the baby's father, namely by having her DNA tested by Ancestry DNA. If the father or one of his relatives has also taken the test, we may be able to find him through their DNA match database. If I'm being completely honest, I'm not happy about this. I've already started to think of the baby girl as my daughter, and having him in our lives would massively complicate the family dynamic. Plus we live in Seattle and she met him in Philadelphia, so God knows how they'd even make it work if he wanted to be the kid's father. However, I recognize that this is a selfish reaction. If we have a chance of finding her biological father, we owe it to her do so, if only so that she has access to her paternal medical history and so that she can have a relationship with him if and when she chooses to do so. I've read a few accounts by children raised by non-biological parents and a common thread is their desire to meet their lost biological parent, so that's that. We've ordered an Ancestry DNA kit for her, and I guess we'll decide our next steps once we get the results back in a couple of months. My girlfriend's close friend asked us to open our relationship so he could pursue her. Now I am not comfortable with her still being around him. I've been with my girlfriend Emily for 4 years now. Emily has a close friend Jeff who I have never liked. The guy has always come off as skeevy, whiny, and creepy to me. I've heard things about him from ex-friends, and even current ones that make him just come off as pathetic and creepy. I could go on about it, but I'll cut to the chase though. The real reason I do not like Jeff is that he has always been interested in Emily. They met in middle school and he's had a crush on her since then. He's tried and failed multiple times over the years to get her to like him. Ever since I came into her life, and we started dating, he's always given me the feeling that he's orbiting waiting for us to break up to try again. He's backed off romantically though and hasn't tried anything for the 4 years we've been together. Jeff has been a sore topic for me and Emily. Even though I don't like him, she and her friends do. I've made it clear to her that I don't like him, but I've never interfered with her friendship with him because I've always trusted her when she tells me she feels nothing romantically for him. This all changed last week. Jeff's own romantic life can only be described as unusual. From what I know, mostly one-night stands and third-wheel scenarios. He's openly poly and I've heard far too much about it from him. Not the lifestyle for me, but whatever suits you. What got to me though, was how he would talk about it to the people in monogamous relationships in his friend group, pitching it as if he was trying to sell them on it for other reasons. Last week, Emily and I tagged along with her friends for an outing. We ended up at a dive late at night for drinks and Jeff tagged along with the two of us. He was incredibly off-putting to me the entire night, much more than usual, acting all buddy-buddy with me to an uncomfortable degree. As we sat and chatted, he brought up his most recent relationship from a few months back, a poly relationship where he was third-wheeling another couple. It was very awkward, much more so when out of nowhere he recommended we try something like that ourselves. The short of it is he asked us to open our relationship and become a triad with him. He knows I'm straight, so what he really meant was he wants to screw Emily and for me to be okay with it. Emily declined, and I wanted to tear into the creep. However, Emily made me go to her car so she could pay for our drinks and leave knowing I was about to make a scene. Suffice it to say, I am not comfortable with her continuing to associate with him. I've made it clear that what he did was completely disrespectful of our relationship and that I don't trust him not to do something more sinister at this point. Emily, however, disagrees. She's saying this is just how Jeff operates, which makes me even more uncomfortable with the situation. He's not neurotypical, and her whole friend group has used that as an excuse for so long. I'm sick of hearing it. We have been arguing nonstop about this now. She doesn't think this is enough of a reason to cut him off and I cannot understand why. Her friend group has essentially decided to stay out of it as well. I did share my thoughts with someone I know who is an ex-friend of Jeff's from high school. I also learned that Jeff has tried to break up Emily and her boyfriends before, and he thinks this is another attempt. She was planning on going out Friday with friends to a movie, which included Jeff. We ended up having another massive argument in which I told her to not come back if she left. She's been staying at her parents' house since. Right now, I feel like I'm living in bizarro land. Every single weird thing about her and her friends now sticks out like porcupine quills. It's like I'm the only one who sees a problem with what Jeff did, and that my opinion does not matter. Emily refuses to tell me what about Jeff is so important and endearing he's worth this. It's like to her this is just normal or something. How do I even proceed at this point? It feels like I'm just being walked over. How can I convey how uncomfortable I am at this? Or is it even worth it at this point? I asked my dad for a new sweatshirt, and his reaction broke my heart. I'm a 16-year-old boy, and like most teenagers, I have my wants and needs. My dad is 37, and our story is a bit different from most families. My dad never graduated high school. He lived in a bad neighborhood and got in with a bad crowd. He then spent a few years in prison. At the age of 21, my dad had me with my mom. My dad told me my mom abandoned me. When I tried reaching out to her, he advised me not to. She blocked me on Facebook. At 21, my dad had inherited his parents' trailer and a bit of their land, so we had a place to stay. Our trailer isn't a lot, but it's our home. My dad, due to his criminal record, has to work for a construction company. He's tried to climb up the ladder in the past years, but his criminal record and lack of education stopped him from doing so. I begged him to allow me to get a job, but he got angry at me saying he wasn't going to have his own child providing for him. My dad regrets his past, but he's always told me he can't change it. He's been the best dad in the world, and I appreciate him so much. He never got into another relationship so he could focus on taking care of me. A part of me feels guilty because he stopped his entire life for me. My dad doesn't make much money, we have a lot of bills and he has some debts, so we don't have much wiggle room. Last time I got brand new clothes was on my 15th birthday. My dad took me shopping at Walmart with his stimulus check. I got a bunch of clothes. However, I guess you could call me a late bloomer and I outgrew most of them. Mainly the shirts because my shoulders broadened out and it began hurting and stretching my clothes. I tried stealing some from the lost and found, but none fit me. When my dad got home, he made dinner, and while we were eating and watching TV I asked him if we could buy a new sweatshirt or two. He gets this really saddened look on his face. To sum up the conversation, he explained that we really didn't have the money, and how we needed food, and he'd start putting aside some for a few months from now. I got pretty sad and disappointed and went to my room. I don't blame my father for any of our troubles, he's a great dad. I'm just frustrated at the situation. That's when I peeked my head out of my bedroom. My father was crying. I wanted to approach him and give him a big hug, but I've never been all that good with emotions. I've barely seen my father cry. I just went back to sleep. My father had been very adamant on me staying in high school, and I'm a good student, I get mainly A's, and I intend to go to college. Tomorrow I'm gonna write my dad a note and leave it to him before I go to school. I'm still deciding what I'm gonna say because I'm still crying a little, but here's the gist. Hey Dad, I just wanna thank you for everything you've done for me and all the sacrifices you made. I promise when I'm making a lot of money after college, we'll get out of this trailer and move into a big house. You can have all the Xbox games you want and finally have the childhood that was taken from you. I understand that everything you've done was to give me the things you never had and I'm eternally grateful. Thank you for everything. I love you, Dad.